Most people live in this common misunderstanding that they think pain will eventually pass. They wait for clarity, they wait for confidence, they wait for motivation, but they're thinking about it the wrong way. You have to more so look at pain as an indicator, as a prompt for you to actually move and as a prompt for you to learn from the lessons of the past. Once I realized this, everything about how I approached change flipped. And because I couldn't see that this was an issue, I was stuck in this constant cycle. This is what I was doing before. When I felt my pain would just pass, I had no incentive to do anything differently. I had no incentive to change, so I would never be able to realize that there was an actual problem with what was going on. When I couldn't realize that there was a problem, all I would ever do is look for distractions for the pain because I thought it would just pass generically. I thought it would just pass naturally, and nothing ended up changing, so I would only fall into more pain and wonder what was even going on. And this was all able to change when I could finally understand the actual pain cycle and realize that my pain actually was an indicator instead of just something that would pass by. Once I could realize that, I started diagnosing my situation, and I realized this pain cycle that I was stuck in. I was stuck in a cycle of pain where I would fill my life with the distractions. I wouldn't realize there was an actual problem and nothing would change, and I would be stuck in this constant cycle for what felt like years, what felt like months and years, and I feel like I couldn't escape. And most people can come to this realization, so they change their surface behaviors. They change what happens on the top, but they don't realize that you can never pull a weed from the top because it'll just grow back. And that's exactly what I did. I tried to pull the weed from the top. I realized that my problem was relying on other people for approval, so I figured I could just cut them all off, and that would solve the problem. I wouldn't be relying on anyone if I never talked to anyone. So I spent the money that I had saved up from previous jobs on a home gym. As you can see here, I have my home gym. It was like $2,000 or something I put into it, and I would work in silence with the goal of getting abs. But at the end of the day, I would still feel alone, so I started telling people about my goals. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when I started telling people about my goals, it defeated the whole purpose of what I was doing in the first place. I had done the surface level root pulling with cutting off everyone, but I hadn't really thought about the deeper level of the roots. So when I started telling people about my goals, all that was ever happening was that root was starting to grow back. So that even after I accomplished this goal, even after I had gotten abs, the pain still remained from the original thing. It felt wrong. It felt unfair. It felt like I had suffered through this pain for nothing of being alone and accomplishing my goal, but nothing had really changed. I had gotten the abs, but I was still left wondering why. So I fell back into the same pain cycle in the first place, thinking the pain would just pass. But one cycle only moved to another, and from the first pain cycle, I went to the second one where my effort didn't count, so I wasn't able to solve the problem and I was left feeling worse than before. I was left going to my old ways and not acting because I thought that it didn't matter anymore. I thought that there wasn't a purpose to acting, so I figured I could just keep going through the same loop and I thought something would just change naturally. Eventually, after staying in the loop long enough, I had lost so much confidence in myself that I couldn't even act. That I didn't even have confidence in myself to do anything, and I was second guessing every single little thing that I was doing. I finally had to ask why. I had lost all confidence in myself to make a simple decision because I was stuck in thinking that my acting didn't matter, and as a result, I was literally getting questions on tests wrong because I was scared to raise my hand. I would go to bed every night feeling unfulfilled and empty, and I would want to do more, but I would spend so much time thinking and second guessing myself that I wouldn't have the energy to actually act. I had to start backtracking where everything went wrong, and I realized after reflecting that my core problem was actually relying on other people for approval. And once I had finally identified the problem, I had to go deeper. Cutting people off didn't work because it was the top of the weed. But the bottom, relying on people for approval, was still there because I was still telling people about my goals, and that's why it didn't work in the first place. I had to pull the root from the bottom if I truly wanted to change. And once I discovered what the actual problem was, I could start breaking down the limiting beliefs that I actually had in the first place. I had to start asking myself why I was actually thinking this way. What was the logic actually attached to me not wanting to do something? And once I could do that, I could see that I was living by hidden rules that I didn't even know I was doing. And this is where most people get it wrong and why most people can never truly change, is because they can recognize that there's a problem, but they can't recognize the actual root of the problem that they need to fix in order to truly change. And the key to doing this is to ask yourself 3 specific questions. You have to first ask yourself what you're afraid of, why you're afraid of that, and then what belief would actually make that logical. For me, what I was afraid of was actually acting, was actually changing, was actually doing something with my life. And the reason that I was afraid of that was because I had reinforced through that loop of pain that my effort didn't matter. That when I changed and when I put an effort towards something, it actually was pointless and that I couldn't do anything by myself. And what belief was making that logical for me was relying on other people for approval. Because when I had relied on other people for approval for so long, it had taught me that I couldn't do anything by myself, that I couldn't actually change without people supporting me. And now you're probably thinking, great, I know what I'm afraid of, but now what do I do? And the key thing to understand is that your fear isn't random. Your fear actually directly points at the belief controlling your life. When I was thinking so much but not acting, I wasn't just scared of acting. It was because I had a limiting belief that I couldn't do anything by myself. The word fear was just a cover word for what I was actually feeling in the moment, that actual emotion. Because of getting cut from the soccer team, I thought my effort didn't matter, so my deep down belief was that I shouldn't do anything at all and there was no point in trying at all because previously my effort hadn't mattered. And here's the thing that you have to understand. Most people run away from fear because it's scary, but fear is actually going to reveal the belief that you need to break in your life to actually change. So now that we've actually found that fear isn't random, it's time to act to remove the belief. Since we found out these problems before, trying to get answers wrong on tests because I wouldn't raise my hand, we can bundle them now into that limiting belief that actually stopped them and actually caused them in the first place, that was deep down believing that my effort didn't matter. So now that we've identified that, we need to commit to change. And how do you commit to change? You have to ask first why change is hard. And change is hard because change means uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to overthinking. Overthinking leads to friction, and friction can lead to inaction. So the key is to get rid of the overthinking. The key is to start building strict rules that allow you to actually change as smoothly as possible. And I always believe that you learn best by learning what went wrong. So I want to show you guys first what happens if you don't actually implement the strict rules in order to change. When you don't implement the strict rules to change, you start acting upon your emotions. Instead of actually worrying about strict rules and following the rules every day, you start overthinking and making decisions by your mood. When your mood decides your actions, all that's ever going to happen is you're only going to do it when you feel like it, which turns out to be almost never, which is going to result in you falling off and feeling shame and doubt, feeling like you can't even change in the first place, which is going to reset the cycle and you're going to be stuck in the same cycle in the first place. So the goal of these strict rules is to eliminate the friction that removes action. Instead of I should probably go to the gym, it now becomes I go to the gym at 6 a.m. on Monday and I'm hitting back workout A. The thing here that you have to understand is that your belief forms your identity. When you create rules that force disciplined behavior, evidence follows and it becomes impossible to ignore. You go from my effort doesn't matter to I follow rules and execute daily and I can see the results of your effort. And that's exactly how you can start to unravel those limiting beliefs. Because once you have those strict rules in place of going to the gym at 6 a.m. and hitting back workout A, all that's left is to execute. You execute on the strict rules. For me, it was cardio at 5 a.m. at first. And then you get results based on real evidence, based on you following the exact rule set that you just made, which you can actually act upon because you no longer have that friction of overthinking. And once you can have that, then you start to build self-trust. Then you can start to see the proof yourself. No longer are you hoping to be disciplined. You're actually seeing the results of the rules that you're following. Once I saw my effort count, I started to establish standards for myself. I started to want to do more because once I could start to do more, once I could see my effort counting, no longer did I have that limiting belief that I couldn't even see that was holding me back. I could execute more. I could do better. I could expand this into other arenas of life and shatter that original limiting belief. And now this is the part that most people skip. To truly reinforce the change, to truly actually break that limiting belief of my effort not counting, I had to start reflecting. I had to start reflecting on the actual rules that I established. Once I could see myself following them, once I could see myself doing them, I could actually prove to myself and destruct that limiting belief piece by piece. Because every new piece, every new day, every new rule that I followed was breaking that belief down. And that's what was really leading me to change, because I could look back and I could see this is where I used to be, where I didn't have any rules, where I didn't follow anything, and this is where I am now, where I have the evidence that I was following the rule set, where I have the evidence that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's how you truly deconstruct that limiting belief. And this is what I want you guys to get out of this video if you get nothing else. Change doesn't start with motivation, and the pain doesn't go away on its own. Change happens when you can look at the pain and find out the actual direction that it's pointing you in. Looking at the bigger picture here, to truly change, first find the belief, follow the fear, create the rules, execute daily, and then reflect on the actual evidence. And once you reflect on the evidence, you can finally smash the limiting belief and truly change. If you're watching this and you know there's a belief holding you back, but you're actually struggling to break it, I help walk people through this exact process. There's a link below where you can book a call with me and we can identify and address that actual belief holding you back. Otherwise, hope you guys got some great value out of this video. Comment that limiting belief that's holding you back and subscribe for some more identity-based content.